Hi everybody, it's Paul with Orlando Bonsai again, and I know it's been a little while since the last video I did, but it's summertime here in Florida and it's hot as can be outside, so activities are a little bit slow right now and things kind of slow down, and I let the trees have a little bit of time to just kind of get wild, to put some new growth out and just get healthy. Your trees can't look perfectly manicured all the time. You need to have some new growth, let your trees grow out a little bit so that you can bring them back to keep the development going. So what I've got right now is I've got a tree, it's a willow leaf ficus. There's so many different names for this: ficus nerifolius, licifolia, all the other fun names, and it's hard to keep up with them anymore, so I'm just going to call it a willow leaf ficus. It's a client of mine, and he's having his bathroom renovated, and he asked me if I would babysit it for a little while and also restyle it. So I figured as long as I was doing it, might as well make a video out of it, and also show him the process that I'm going through as I change this tree. As you can see, it's definitely, you can see where the light source is because everything's pulling this way. The back of the tree is pretty vacant because it's up against a building. So what I'm doing right now is just kind of looking at the way it's sitting in the pot and looking at possibilities for restyling the tree. My biggest issue is you can see how it's planted in the pot right now. Very tall tree, which makes it very leggy. All the growth is out at the tips of these branches, and this is a very nice large trunk, but as the branches get further out, it makes it look small and weak, and we can bring it back in. The height of the tree can be, of course, 6:1 on the width of the base of the tree, but on something like this, it gets very narrow pretty fast. So I'm using this as the base of the tree. So really, the top of the tree should be somewhere right on here, instead of way up here. So we're definitely going to reduce the height down. But I just want to go over my thought process as I slowly look at this tree, and we can determine what the best new front's going to be and a proper style for it. As you can see, I'm turning this with one hand, and it's a pretty heavy tree. It's on one of my turntables that I use, and today I'm going to talk about why a turntable is definitely needed. So let's get started. I'll change the camera angle and let you guys see what I see, and we'll kind of go from there. So for the most part, you're pretty much looking straight over my shoulder. So again, this is the front of the tree currently as it sits in the pot. My issues with the tree are this. I've got a little gap in here, and this is almost like two separate kinds of trees. I've got one that's kind of going that way with the growth, and then I've got this second tree which is leaning back away from the viewer, and all the growth going this way. So what I'm going to try and do is tie this all in together as one tree, and I think there's going to be some stuff being removed, some branches or some trunks. I've got two branches that are similar size together over here, and I don't think that's it adds anything to the tree in any way, so I'm probably going to select one of those and do a little bit of manipulation with the branch and get it in the right direction. And I also want to change the angle that this is sitting in the pot. Instead of having it so tilted back, let's bring it forward in the tree. So there's a couple tools that I use along with my turntable, and these are really inexpensive. This is, of course, is just a 2x4 cut at an angle to make a small little wedge. And what you can do with this is change the angle of the pot on your turntable. So as you sit and spin the tree around, you can actually look at how you can better situate the tree, actually do a little bit of repotting and put it at a better angle that makes it gives you different options to look at. So when you're working on your tree for the first time, or you're trying to develop your tree differently, don't just assume that the way it's sitting in the pot right now is the way the tree has to be. You want to have a lot of different options, and of course you want to bring out the best of that tree that you can. And there's a lot of movement in this tree, and it's a wonderful almost clump style, but the roots are even though they cross over a little bit, there's not any major tangle look to it. I mean, these are still straight roots kind of going out. So the base of this tree is still, it's not bad as far as I'm concerned. Some of these roots could be removed or changed angles or just taken off altogether, because if they don't really add to the tree, why leave them? The tree, there's plenty of roots for this tree to keep going. Secondly is this is a handkerchief. Now this is a Mary Miller trick that she does, but it's a wonderful tool that you can use to help visualize what a tree will look like if you take off the branch, what the tree will look like without actually taking the branch off. So for example, if we want to take off this back trunk, all you do is you wrap and I think they call it the Mary Miller magic cloth around the trunk, and then when you turn it around, you can now visualize, well, that's definitely going to change the look of the tree. Is this going to be too thin? You know, it will give you a really nice taper, but it's definitely a possibility to change the tree. You remove all that trunk in the back, your tree's now coming at you. It's a good composition. Just got to bend these around a little bit to complete the look. Reduce these branches back and have a nice little canopy right in here. You know, the branches, you know, would maybe bring these down to complete the apex of the tree. Remove one of these, or even, and with ficus, they're extremely flexible, so we can move this wherever we really want it, even going the other direction. The only problem is it's getting so far away from the tree at this point. So most likely the best way to do these is going to be to just reduce them down and let them pop out new growth, and then when we get new options, we can go forward with what we want to do with the tree. Again, removing the cloth, of course, brings the branch back into the picture, and now you've got, you know, a whole different look again of what this tree will look like if you were to remove some branches. You know, you can kind of get a good feel without, you know, already doing the damage. Well, even a view like this really makes for a very nice tree as well. But the biggest part of the tree that we look at is the nabari. Now I can understand why it was planted in the pot like it is, just because this is the widest part of the tree, the most visually impressive because of the large nabari on this. But an angle like this could absolutely work. Bringing down this branch a little bit to break up the straightness of this branch, bringing it down a little bit lower, and making the movement of this into nice little pads, and then eventually growing a nice canopy in here, having this at the top of the tree. And I'll just take off, you know, we'll just show what that's going to look like without that growth on there. And of course removing this as well. So I think you can kind of see, you know, how this whole tree can be a lot shorter and stay, you know, get the composition together. But my problem is there is so much movement down low, and then they get very, very straight. So along with the handkerchief, let's try the wedges. I'm going to spin this one time just to give you a good look at, you know, the options that we have as it sits right now in the pot. Again, it's leaned back quite a bit. Even this that's forward is still leaning back a bit. So let's see what we can do. I really want to get this more straight up and down. So what I'll do is I'll put a couple wedges in the back. And now you can see how the pot's now sitting definitely at an angle. But look how now this is not so tilted back, it's tilted forward a little bit. So that changes the entire look of the tree. So now we've got more options to look at. Remember, this is the look that we were looking at before, bringing that branch down and building a pad right there, bringing this down and building a pad right here. We now have a much lower tree at a very nice angle. All we would do after we do the styling is then uproot the tree, take the root ball out, you know, trim it down if you need to, but then repot this tree at this angle. And that way when the pot sits flat, the tree's still at this angle. And the nice thing about doing it like this, there's a lot of times when you have branches that are growing just at the wrong angle. So instead of changing the branch that might be too thick to move, you can change the angle of the tree in the pot, and that gives you more options without even having to wire the tree or even having to bend this branch. It's now at an appropriate angle to restyle the tree. So that's what we're looking at again. I'm still not sure where the front of my tree is going to be, possibly here, because I still have the nice wide nabari. It still shows all the characteristics, even though it shows a little bit of depth now, because this is no longer like this, it's more that way. But I still get to see it. This is a little bit of a challenge for me right here, because the whole tree wants to flow this way. And then these are going the wrong way. I can bend them in, again, like I said, but it's going to be so wide and so far off, it's almost like a separate tree. And actually, if you look at the trunk of this tree, you've got this whole mass, and then you've got this, which almost looks like a separate tree that was enveloped by this. So even though it's now part of it, and I was looking to possibly just remove it and pull it off altogether, but it would leave such dents on the roots that in time would heal over, but I think it would take away from the tree. So I'm going to kind of work it in right now. In the future, though, if this is something that we want to look at, maybe we can remove it at that point. But I don't want to take it out, because I mean that's probably about 3 or 4 years worth of growth rate there. That it's going to be hard to replace. But I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to either keep this as my front, but I also like this angle. The nice thing about this side, well, there's a few things about this side. One is it puts that tree, the problem issue for me, in the back, so that it gives a little bit of depth for the actual tree. But you also have the problem now I'm going to have a scar up here because I'm going to remove this large branch, take the top off of here. But in time, this is going to be a canopy and all of this is going to be hidden. I need to get some weight back here. I can't have an entire tree pulling forward like this without doing a windswept look. I certainly don't want to do that with this tree. It doesn't make any sense. There's so much growth going this way, and even though the whole tree is pulling towards the sun, it's not looking like it's on a mountain. It's not looking like it's, you know, under constant wind. So I do have to have part of the canopy back over this side. But I think this is a good angle to show, you know, the movement of the tree, but it doesn't really give me the nice nabari. So I'm really thinking this is going to be the side I'm going to have to work with to make as the front of my tree. And again, I might be able to tilt the pot this way as well. We're not just talking front to back. We can talk every angle to really find the best appropriate angle for this tree to work on. So I'm going to reset the tree onto the angle that I think is best for it. And then I'll come back to the video and we can start removing some branches and getting this thing wired in position, and hopefully this will turn out to be a much better tree and something that looks really really nice in the future. And I went through quite a few changes. Well, I guess I went through quite a few angles. Haven't really changed anything yet, but I really think this is going to be the front of my tree. Let me see if I can get that to where you're looking, somewhere in that area right there. Again, I'm still struggling with these to figure out what I'm going to do with them, but right now this is my main tree right back in here. I'm going to remove this branch back here, or this part of the trunk, and then this is going to be my new top, which is really nice because I got good movement all the way up, plus one last movement right before the apex. So I'll remove that right up here, and then this is just going to be reduced back a little bit, maybe bent down just a touch, but brought back in. My canopy is going to be kind of like this, almost like in a isosceles triangle. We're going to bring that branch down, going to bring this branch down, and then in time this is all going to fill in. Now, a few things I want to tell you. Like I said, this is a client's tree, and so even though I can kind of do whatever I want with this thing, you know, he gave me full reign to restyle it, I want to give him a tree that's got some foliage on it. You know, an option on this tree would be to remove a lot of these branches and just kind of grow a brand new tree in it, but you're talking maybe a 2-year program to have that happen. So I want to give him something that looks like a bonsai. Let me correct that. It looks like a tree. There's a lot of people, you know, try and make their trees look like bonsai, but I'm not sure what that actually means. You don't want it to look like a bonsai. You want it to look like an old tree that you'd find in nature. So that's exactly what we're trying to do with this one. We're trying to find something that's going to be almost kind of a, and also you can see I used one of my reels for my wire to support it because I really had to change the angle on this so drastically. But I want this to look like something in nature. So what I have is a banyan style tree now. That's the look we're going for. Real long branches that then have the aerial roots that drop down. Makes a very large, beautiful canopy, and I think he's going to be very happy with this. One place I did see a very nice version of this was Charlie Michelson did one for the Epcot display this year. And I'm going to put a picture of that up right now to show you where one of the inspiration ideas that I had for it, because on his tree he also has this very long straight branch, but he made it work really nice. He's got a much different base than I do, but I think you'll see in the photo, how this tree is very similar to that, and you can see the canopy that I'm going for. So I'm going to start removing some branches. Tools I'm looking at are just a Corona bypass cutter. Get these at Home Depot or whatever, inexpensive, but we'll do the job right here. That's a pretty thick branch. I might have to resort to an actual saw, or I like the root cutters. These are the giant size root cutters. I sell these in Orlando Bonsai. The thing I like about them, it's a nice flat cut. Compared to the concave cutter, which is actually going to dig in. For this type of material, it doesn't really roll over like very bulky, so you don't need to have that concave to let it roll in. It's going to heal over pretty flat anyway, so that's why I like to do the nice flat cuts when it comes to the Nerfolia. So let's get started right here. As far as sealant goes on a ficus, I don't normally do it. I don't really see the benefit of it, being that it seals itself up pretty quickly anyway, so I really don't use a whole lot of sealants on a ficus. And there we go. There's my tree. You can see how drastically that changed the entire look of this tree already. It brought the whole look down, brought your eye focused now back to the base of the tree where it belongs. No more that, growing very high that takes your eye way up and just shows a real stringy looking tree or a really leggy looking tree. Now we've got nice movement in the main trunk. We're going to wire these down a little bit, build the pads right in here, bring this branch down a little bit, and then we're going to reduce the length of these to bring them back into the composition of the tree. But I think you can already see how much better this tree is going to look just with that simple difference that I've already done. Okay, so what I did was I went around and cleaned up a lot of the cuts that I'd done. This is the one that I'd sawed off that very large chunk, but left a bit of a stump. So all I did was I took my root cutters, wherever I put them, and just simply started taking little nips off until I got it nice and flat. So the wound is nice and it is now flat with the rest of the trunk. Even though I'm getting a lot of sap running, the sap will just stop in, very shortly. But you can see, look at the nice movement of that trunk right now. And it gave me really nice movement, or a really nice taper really quickly. Here's my tree. I really like the height of this is the top of the tree. Whoops. Okay. I really like the overall height of the tree. What I have here is a little bit of knobby scars. I'm just going to clean that up a little bit and make it a little bit more natural of a bend in there. Now, in time, with the ficus, I'm going to get new branches popping all over the place. I took off a lot of material off the top of this tree, so I've got a lot more roots than I do tree, which means this tree is going to want to put out a lot more energy to grow new branches, and that's exactly what we want. Right now I've got the basic structure of a tree. I've got the skeleton. I've got a main trunk, but I also have the other parts of the branches, but I need a whole canopy in here. So I need the tree to really develop, and by taking that extra material off, I've got more light coming in. I've got a lot more opportunities for branches to start developing in here, and I'm really not sure what's going to happen down here. What I really think would really be a nice feature on this is if these branches were growing this direction, and I've already got new growth coming out down here. So I'm just going to start by removing one of these branches, but I'm most likely going to wind up removing both, and then in time having the tree give me new growth coming this way, which I can put as a small little pad down here or a small little branch, just to kind of give me a little bit more of a almost like an accent plant. But we'll see. I'm almost tempted to remove the whole thing, but at least it's not much of a distraction, and I need a lot more branching to grow on this side. I'm just going to get it, maybe the rest of the canopy is going to come out here, so if I get one branch coming out here, which will just complete that canopy for me, give me a really nice look. And now I'm just going to wire these branches down into place and remove the height off of this, because we really want this to stay in the same line as the rest of the tree. So a little bit of wiring there, and I think we are pretty much as far as we're going to go with this tree today. What I decided to do was, well, first of all, let me go over the basic structure of this tree. I'm going to bend a little bit more than I'm looking at the video, just a little bit more. And when you're bending branches, you're going to bend the wire. You're not trying to bend the branch. You're actually trying to bend each of the kinks of the wire. That's where your strength's coming from. We'll bring this one up just a little bit, just to put a difference between the two. Okay, so right now I've got all the flow of the tree going this way. What we're going to have is we're going to have development of new branches and new foliage on the back side of on the branches. Also on the top of these branches will fill in. So we're going to get a lot of new growth coming in here. So we're going to have a pad back here, pad back here, pad back here. This will develop even more, and I might actually wire that out a little bit more just to give it a little bit more structure, and just to force the growth to come in a little bit fuller down here. What I figured I'm going to do down here as well, I do want to keep the second branch, or I do want to keep this kind of second trunk. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this, and I'm going to get something to prop down here, and then I'll take a branch off the top of this and then bring it down in just to fill in a little bit down here, just to give a nice little extra pad and a little bit more interest. So it ties this trunk together with this trunk, makes this all one composition, whereas before we had trees going everywhere. So now we've got one good composition. I think it turned out very well. Hopefully you think the same thing. There was a lot of options to do with this tree, but I think this is the best one as far as I could see for bringing this tree into a finished looking bonsai. I don't know if I'm going to change the angle of the pot right now. Once it's styled, it's fine. I can let the growth take over at this point, and then sometime maybe down the road go ahead and change the tree into the pot to match the angle that I've developed the tree with. And again, I might tweak it a little bit more as I set it flat in the pot to really get a good angle on this thing. So I hope you found this enjoyable to watch, and again, don't forget to subscribe to orlandobonsai.com and to Orlando Bonsai TV. Try and get my videos about at least once a week, but when there's nothing to do, I'm not going to just put a video up for the heck of it. So have any questions, feel free to get either send me an email at paul@orlandobonsai.com, or just simply comment to this video. Talk to you later.